This segment of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. A local clergyman and his passengers on his small craft that crashed earlier today are thankful to be alive. Bishop Cedric Bullard posted on his social media page shortly after the incident, grateful to God. Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority of the Bahamas reported that around 7:30 a.m. an aircraft crashed into the swampy area of Treasure Key, Abaco. The Piper PA-32 Cherokee 6, with registration as C6TOY, was departing the Treasure Key Airport and held 5 souls on board. Kendall Dorset Jr., an operations investigator at AAIA, gave JCN News more details on the incident.
Shortly after takeoff, there was a loss of engine power, and as a result, the pilot opted to land the aircraft in swamp waters some 5 nautical miles away from the Treasure Key Airport. There were no injuries to the souls on board, and in the aftermath, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and the U.S. Coast Guard responded and were able to successfully rescue all persons on board.
After being rescued, all persons were transported to Treasure Key for processing. In crime news, police here in the capital investigating the country's latest homicide. According to reports, shortly before 8 last night, a group of males were gathered outside a business establishment on Pinedale when an argument between 2 of the males began. This resulted in one of the men producing a sharp object and stabbing the other multiple times. The victim was transported to hospital via private vehicle, where he later succumbed to his injuries. Investigations into this matter continues. Meantime, police recovered an illegal firearm. According to reports, shortly after 10 p.m., officers from the Central Investigation Department acting on information went to Adderley and Wilkinson Street. While there, they conducted a search of a bushy area and recovered a black 9mm pistol with 2 unfired rounds of ammunition. No arrest was made in this incident. Family, Governor General of the Bahamas, past and present prime ministers, past and present politicians, members of the judiciary, dignitaries, and the public paid their respects to former Free National Movement Senator, National Chairman, trade unionist, and veteran educator, the late John Lee Ferguson, today in the foyer of the Senate. Health Minister Renard Wells spoke to the legacy of Mr. Ferguson, noting that they shared a special friendship and he's forever appreciative of his life and to his family that loaned him to the politics of this nation.
John Lee and I ate together almost every Saturday morning down at Rudy's off of Cowpen Road, and he was very instrumental in helping to shape some of my understanding of the political dynamics that go on in the country. And above all else, he was always extremely encouraging. He was always straightforward. And if you wanted a straight answer on something, you can ask him.
Deputy Leader of the Progressive Liberal Party, Chester Cooper, spoke to Mr. Ferguson's legacy as an educator. He said he and Mr. Ferguson obtained their Masters of Business Administration together.
He has been a pioneer in politics, but I think sometimes we forget the legend that people are before entering politics. And it's important for us to reflect on his achievements in education, his sterling track record as an educator across the Bahamas, as an island boy from Auckland.
He has left behind a distinguished legacy, served with excellence as principal to numerous schools throughout the country. He also served for some years as an island administrator. Mr. Ferguson ran for the Michael seat in 2002 and the South Eleuthera seat in 2007. The Free National Movement will host a virtual memorial service for Mr. Ferguson on tomorrow, August 27th at 1 p.m., streaming live on its Facebook page. And on this day 20 years ago, the nation mourned the death of the man who was still regarded as the father of the nation, the Progressive Liberal Party's former leader, the country's first black premier and first prime minister, and that's Sir Lyndon Oscar Pendling. Today, his family laid a wreath in his memory at his mausoleum at the St. Agnes Cemetery. The deputy leader of the PLP reflected on Sir Lyndon's legacy and says that Sir Lyndon was one of the most decorated political sons in the modern history of the Bahamas.
When we look at how he was able as a very young man at the age of 26 to be elected with the endorsement of the founders of the Progressive Liberal Party and becoming premier 10 or 11 years later. It speaks to the significance of his qualities, one that touched people in a very meaningful way, and one that had the foresight and the vision to build a country. We saw the building in many of the great institutions that were inspired and built by his hands and that of his colleagues in the Progressive Liberal Party.
Sir Lyndon, who was an attorney by profession, led the country to majority rule in 1967 and then to independence in 1973. He was the country's longest-serving prime minister from 1956 to 1992. Sir Lyndon represented the constituency of South Andros and Mangrove Key from 1962 to 1997. Before that, in 1956, he successfully contested Nassau's Southern District constituency. Years after his death, institutions which he established are still going strong, such as the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the College of the Bahamas, now the University of the Bahamas, and the National Insurance Board. The international airport was renamed in his honor, and his face can be found on the Bahamian $1 bill. Sir Lyndon left behind widow Dame Margaret Penling and 4 children. He was 70 years old when he died. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.